My wife's family went to unbelievable lengths by faking her death just to test my loyalty. I was devastated, grieving, and nearly lost my mind, only to find out it was all a sick game. And now they have the nerve to ask for forgiveness like nothing happened. I am a 32-year-old man, and my wife, who is 29, and I have been married for 3 years. We connected instantly after being introduced by mutual friends, and for the initial couple of years, everything felt effortless. Our backgrounds were quite different. Mine was fairly ordinary, without much extravagance. Yet, we shared core values, found humor in the same silly films, and enjoyed peaceful weekends. I work in education, a field not known for high earnings, but I truly love what I do, and she always expressed admiration for that. Her family, however, was a different matter entirely. From the very beginning, they never truly embraced me. Her parents were affluent and refined, the sort of individuals who judged worth by lineage and designer labels. They would present a pleasant facade publicly, but in private, it was evident I wasn't the son-in-law they had envisioned. Her father was particularly difficult. He would deliver subtle, cutting remarks about public school boys and blue-collar weddings, always accompanied by a knowing smirk, as if aware I couldn't challenge him without making things difficult for her. I may not have come from wealth, but my intentions were genuine, which held no significance for them. They rarely extended invitations to family gatherings unless she strongly insisted, and even then, the atmosphere was always distant, as though I had trespassed into an exclusive club without proper credentials. Still, I didn't want to be the reason she distanced herself from her family, so I remained composed, kept a low profile, and quietly sought their respect. Approximately a month before everything unraveled, subtle shifts began to occur between us. Initially, they were minor. She spent more time on her phone, keeping it face down. She would become distracted mid-conversation, then dismiss it as work-related stress. I didn't press the issue, perhaps I should have, but I assumed everyone goes through phases, and she would confide in me when she was ready. Then, she announced she needed to visit her parents for a few days, alone. That detail caught me off guard. In 3 years of marriage, she had never done that. She typically couldn't tolerate being at their home for extended periods without me, given their constant private disagreements. But she insisted this visit would be brief, claiming she simply needed a change of scenery. She packed lightly and departed on a Thursday morning. She embraced me at the door, not a hurried hug, but not a firm one either, more like the kind you give someone you anticipate not seeing for a while, but aren't ready to acknowledge it yet. After that, she vanished. I sent a text the first night, a brief message hoping she arrived safely. No response. My call went straight to voicemail. I thought perhaps she was tired or had forgotten her charger. But then the next day passed, and the next. Her phone never reactivated. I messaged her sister, her mother, even her cousin. No one offered a direct answer. They all provided some variation of "she needs space," as if reciting from a script. By day 3, I was calling hourly, with no success. I even contacted her workplace. They informed me she had taken personal leave and no one had heard from her. That's when I drove to her parents' house. Her father met me at the door and accused me of overreacting. He stated she was fine, just needed a break from everything, and I should respect that. I filed a missing person report on the drive home. The officer who took it seemed concerned, but explained there was little they could do since she had left voluntarily. Still, they made a note of it and said they would contact me if anything surfaced. 4 days later, her mother called. I answered immediately. Her voice was trembling. She said my wife had died in a car accident, late at night near their house, and that she was simply gone. I froze, unable to even process it. But something felt wrong. When I inquired about the location of the accident and where she had been taken, her mother merely sobbed, claiming she didn't have the details yet, saying they were too distraught to think clearly. However, when I called the hospital she mentioned, they stated no one by that name had been admitted, no accident matching that time or location. Nothing. I contacted the county office to inquire about a death certificate. They said none had been filed. No obituary appeared online either. I called her father, no answer. I texted, nothing. Her sister blocked me. I even checked with mutual friends to see if they had heard anything. They hadn't. 2 days after the supposed accident, I learned through one of her coworkers that the family had held a private memorial service. I was not invited, nor was I even informed of its location or time. When I called again to inquire, this time using a different number, her mother answered, said it was only for close family, and hung up. That's when I realized something was deeply, truly wrong. I began to meticulously record everything, every message, every call, every peculiar interaction. I wasn't yet certain what I was searching for, but I needed to establish a clear record. With the limited savings I possessed, I engaged a private investigator. I provided him with every detail, names, addresses, timelines, even her last known whereabouts. He mentioned he had encountered similar situations before, uncommon but not unheard of. 2 weeks later, he emailed me a photograph. It was her, alive, walking into a restaurant near the beach, sunglasses on, hair tied back. She wasn't alone. Her sister and father were with her. They appeared relaxed, as if nothing had ever happened, as if there had never been a car crash, no obituary, no tearful phone call about a fatal accident. She was alive, and they knew. They all knew. The photo was still displayed on my laptop when my brother arrived. He didn't knock, simply let himself in, saw me on the floor in the hallway, and sat beside me without speaking. I hadn't moved for nearly an hour. I couldn't. I had dropped the phone when I received the email. My hands wouldn't stop trembling, and my chest felt as though it were collapsing. He helped me up, poured water, and stayed the night, asking no questions, just ensuring I was breathing. The next morning, I did not confront her family. I did not send the photo to anyone. I did not post it, print it, or forward it. I saved it in 2 locations and instead called the investigator. He said he would continue to monitor her for another week and meticulously document everything, without surprises or haste. He simply requested permission to continue his investigation. I granted it. Over the next few days, he sent photographs, time-stamped and geotagged, every detail documented. My wife was alive, well, and spending her time at a waterfront property just a few hours from where we lived. Her parents owned the place. She wasn't in hiding in another country. She wasn't in therapy. She wasn't recovering from trauma. She was tanned, smiling, wearing dresses I had never seen before, and walking barefoot across wooden decks with her sister and father close behind. They drank cocktails, went shopping in nearby towns, and even took a yacht out twice. The investigator had photos from every angle. It was impossible to deny. I examined our shared bank account to see if she had accessed any funds. Not a single dollar was missing. However, when I spoke to the lawyer who had assisted us in setting up that account after our marriage, he retrieved a record indicating she had quietly removed her name from the account just days before her departure. She wasn't taking money. She was severing her connection to it. She had been transferred into a private family trust, managed by her father through his own advisor. The lawyer looked at me as if I were fabricating the truth when I informed him she was supposed to be deceased. A week later, I went to her father's office. It wasn't a prearranged meeting. I walked in with a copy of the photo and asked the front desk to summon him. They didn't. Instead, 2 security guards appeared and instructed me to leave. I attempted to speak calmly. One of them grasped my arm. The other opened the main doors and gestured for me to exit. I did not resist, did not shout, simply left the photo at the reception desk before being escorted out and told not to return. That night, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. It contained only one sentence. "Now we know your true colors." It came from her father. I did not reply, simply stared at the screen, wondering what true colors even implied. I hadn't yelled, hadn't posted anything, hadn't gone to the press or the police. I wasn't even attempting to cause harm. I simply desired the truth, and they were still playing games. I tried contacting 2 of her oldest college friends. Both were polite but distant. One claimed she had heard my wife had gone overseas for mental health treatment. The other stated she had been instructed not to contact me because I wasn't coping well. I asked if they believed she was dead. Neither offered a clear answer. They simply hung up, then blocked my number. That made 3 individuals who had now severed ties with me without explanation. The lawyer I consulted afterward listened attentively and meticulously documented everything. When I explained her disappearance, how her family had declared her dead, and the absence of an obituary or death certificate, his pen ceased moving. He remarked that it sounded like a combination of emotional abuse and fraud. I inquired if it constituted abandonment. He replied it was worse than that. He asked if I still possessed the photographs. I emailed them over. I did not return to work. I utilized all my leave days and took the remainder unpaid. My boss expressed understanding, but I could tell he was unsure what to make of the situation. He didn't ask for specifics, simply advised me to handle things and return when I was ready. The only person I fully confided in was my therapist. I had been seeing her intermittently for a year, primarily for routine check-ins. This time was different. She listened, nodded, then informed me I was experiencing ambiguous loss. She explained it's what occurs when someone is absent but not deceased, or deceased but not truly gone. She said it was one of the most challenging forms of grief to process because it offers no closure, only unanswered questions. Then, finally, a call came through. It was her. Her name illuminated my phone screen as if nothing had ever transpired. She sounded normal, calm, with no apology or panic. She simply resumed our conversation as if we had spoken yesterday. She stated she had done what she needed to do, that the preceding weeks were a test, that she had to ascertain if I would remain loyal even if I believed she was dead. She referred to it as an experiment. She claimed she had no regrets. I did not yell, did not ask why, did not say anything. I simply ended the call and walked to the sink, then vomited. I did not sleep for 3 nights after that call. Each time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again, flat, steady, as if she were reading from a script. She spoke as though it were all logical, as if there was nothing wrong with her actions, as if she expected gratitude. She attempted to call again the next day, and the one after that. I never answered. I sent one text, just a single sentence, "Do not contact me again." Then I blocked her number. That was the last time I granted her access to me. A few days later, her sister emailed. The message was lengthy, emotional, and full of inconsistencies. She termed it a family-led loyalty test, stating they had all been concerned I wasn't truly invested in the marriage, that I might leave if circumstances became difficult, and that they needed to observe my reaction in a crisis. She revealed they had all been involved, her parents, even their family lawyer. They regarded it as a controlled social experiment, their words. She provided more details than I had anticipated. The car accident was fabricated from the outset. They created counterfeit paperwork and paid a retired nurse to impersonate an independent caregiver, answering my call and claiming to relay updates on behalf of a private clinic. They drafted a mock incident report and provided me with a number supposedly linked to a responding officer, but it was merely a burner phone with a pre-written script. Every step was meticulously planned, coordinated, designed to simulate loss without actually causing harm to anyone. She claimed I passed the test, that I didn't cheat, didn't flee, that I waited, filed reports, and remained loyal. She suggested I should feel proud. I did not reply. I contacted the same investigator and asked him to ascertain if anything else had been fabricated, any legal documents filed, statements, or falsified emails in my name. He said he would begin the inquiry. 2 days later, I met the sister in person. She selected a quiet cafe near a university campus, with large windows, in the middle of the afternoon, public but not crowded. She wore sunglasses and a hoodie, sitting with her back to the door. She appeared anxious. I brought a folder with me, but did not open it. She apologized again in person, stating their father had never trusted me and that the entire family believed I was only interested in money or status. She revealed the plan had been in development for over a year. I asked if she understood what they had told me, that her sister was dead, that I had grieved, that I couldn't eat or sleep or breathe for days. She said I was supposed to snap by then. She said they wanted to see if I would start drinking heavily or begin messaging old girlfriends or fall apart at work. They wanted proof. That was her exact word. I slammed my hand on the table and stood up. People turned. I walked out. The lawyer I had consulted earlier reviewed everything again. He stated we were in a legally ambiguous area. Emotional abuse was a reality, but proving intent and damages would be challenging. There was no written confession, no public record of harm, and since they hadn't stolen money or property, it wasn't financial fraud. He said we might have a case, but only if we meticulously documented everything, dates, names, and the direct impact on my health, finances, and career. I instructed him to quietly begin drafting divorce paperwork. I did not want her or her family to be aware of my actions until the process was already underway. I changed the locks at home the same day. I contacted every utility company, and removed her name from the accounts. I canceled shared streaming platforms, unlinked every device, ordered a new credit card, and rerouted all bank mail to a different address. Then I dispatched 3 letters, one to her father, and one to her mother. These were cease and desist notices. No contact, no visits, no involvement in any aspect of my life going forward. My lawyer mailed the originals and emailed backup copies. That's when the negative reactions began. Mutual friends started texting, some awkward messages, some polite check-ins. One even inquired if I was mentally well and mentioned that my wife's family had claimed I was experiencing a paranoid breakdown. They were disseminating a story that I was unstable, overreacting, fabricating things. I did not respond to any of it, simply saved the messages and moved on. One friend, an old roommate, visited in person. He admitted he no longer knew what to believe, having heard one version from them and another from me. I showed him the photographs, the private investigator's report, the timeline. He departed after 15 minutes, saying little, but he later texted to say he had severed ties with them. At my next therapy appointment, I brought the email from the sister and the recording of our cafe meeting. My therapist listened to all of it. She told me what I was confronting wasn't merely manipulation. It was something called malignant narcissism, where an individual or group rationalizes abuse by portraying it as a valuable lesson. She stated my wife's family was entrenched in a groupthink mentality, where they reinforced each other's beliefs until nothing else mattered. She advised me to begin documenting everything in writing. Every memory, every moment, every document, not just for therapy, but for legal purposes. The last message I ever received from my wife arrived that same week, a text from an unknown number. It read, "You would have cheated if I had been gone longer. You're not mad because it was wrong. You're mad because you got caught caring." I did not reply. I forwarded it to my lawyer and blocked the number. That was the last time I heard from her. It was a Saturday afternoon when she appeared, without warning or text. I opened the door expecting a delivery, and there she stood, as if it were any other weekend, sunglasses on, bouquet in hand, smiling as if this were normal. She didn't even wait for an invitation, simply lifted the flowers and uttered something casual, as if we were still married, as if nothing had happened. I did not allow her inside. I stepped into the doorway, blocking it with my body. She did not move, merely repeated the same phrase she used in the text. "You passed." That's all that matters. As if it were a game, as if she were proud of me. She removed her sunglasses and tilted her head, waiting. I told her to leave. She laughed, said I was always dramatic, and claimed she knew I would never actually call the police. That's when I reached for my phone. She rolled her eyes, but did not press further. Then she announced she was ready to come home, not asked to return, but ready to, as if the entire ordeal was a temporary break, a challenge I had successfully completed. She produced her old apartment key and attempted to use it. The deadbolt did not budge. I had changed the locks 2 weeks earlier. She looked confused at first, then annoyed. Before she could say anything else, I asked her directly, "Are you admitting your family planned all of it? Every step, the phone calls, the car accident story, the fake hospital?" She nodded, without hesitation, saying yes, all of it. What she failed to realize was that the security camera above my door had a built-in microphone. The entire exchange, her voice, her tone, the confession, was recorded. My lawyer downloaded the footage the next morning, time-stamped and labeled. He said it was the first piece of genuine leverage we possessed. She walked off after that, not slamming anything, not yelling, simply leaving as if she had come for groceries and forgotten something. But a few hours later, someone else knocked. Her father and her sister stood outside, both dressed as if they had come from church. Her father called through the door, asking to talk like civilized people. I did not respond. They stood there for almost 10 minutes before departing. First thing the next morning, I sent the audio recording to my lawyer. He began drafting a formal legal complaint for emotional distress, stating we would have to build a case over time, but the confession provided a real starting point. Her family emailed 2 days later. They proposed mediation, offering to hire a neutral third party and sit down like adults to clear the air. I refused. I instructed my lawyer to respond directly. I was not interested in their theatrics, not after everything they had done. That same week, she emailed about property, stating she wanted a few sentimental items from the apartment, a painting from our hallway, a Dutch oven her aunt had gifted us, a set of knives she had brought from her college days. I did not reply. My lawyer did, instructing her to send a list through legal channels, nothing more. I also noticed a few letters missing from the shared mailbox in the lobby, bank statements, a tax form, even a medical invoice. I had a strong suspicion her family still possessed a spare key. I went to the post office the next morning and had the lock changed, picking up all mail in person for the next 2 weeks, just in case. Then her mother sent a handwritten letter, without an envelope, delivered by a private courier in a black suit. The note stated the test was necessary to maintain appearances in their social circle, that trust had to be proven, and that I should feel honored for having passed. My therapist and I read the letter together. She helped me file it in the timeline we had been constructing, a document containing dates, screenshots, transcripts, letters, anything with proof. She emphasized the importance of maintaining factual accuracy, especially when gaslighting is involved, as repeated falsehoods can easily obscure the truth. A couple we used to go on double dates with stopped replying to my messages. I saw their photographs appear in a group dinner hosted by my wife's sister. I did not reach out again, simply crossed their names off a list I had been maintaining. Not a revenge list, just a record of who stood where. The final step that week came from my lawyer. He issued an official notice. No further contact from my wife or any member of her family unless it came through legal counsel. Any calls, texts, visits, or indirect messages would be considered harassment. The notice was mailed and emailed with receipt confirmation attached. It was the first week in over a month where no one knocked, no one called, no one appeared pretending to resolve things. The silence felt peculiar, not peaceful, just different, like the beginning of something new. A white envelope appeared in my mailbox midweek, thick, heavy, with gold trim and embossed lettering. It wasn't addressed by hand. It had been printed like a wedding invitation. Inside was a folded card titled Reconciliation Dinner. Her parents were hosting a formal event. An RSVP was requested, with date, time, and dress code all laid out like a celebration. The wording was strange. It made no mention of anything she or her family had done. Instead, it referred to her re-entry into life as a transition phase and asked me to remain gracious about the trauma I was made to endure, as if it had simply happened to me, as if they weren't the ones who caused it. The back of the card featured a quote about resilience and love overcoming misunderstandings, not grief, not betrayal, but misunderstandings. That night, I located the message she had sent during the entire fake death charade, the one where she claimed I would have cheated if she had remained absent longer. I did not delete it. I kept it archived. Reading it again reminded me of the true nature of the person I was dealing with. I sent a copy of the invitation to my lawyer. He advised me not to respond. No attendance, no contact, just documentation. Every card, every letter, every attempt at outreach, they all counted as evidence. He added the dinner invitation to the file. The next morning, another delivery arrived, a larger, heavier box. Inside was our wedding photo album, which I hadn't seen in over a year. Along with it was a handwritten letter from her, folded neatly on pink stationery and labeled A New Beginning. In the letter, she expressed hope that I would look past the method and focus on the love behind the idea. She called it bold, unorthodox, claiming it was the only way to prove what she called emotional permanence. She did not apologize, simply reiterated the same excuse. If it had been fake but failed, I would have proven I was unfaithful. She termed it a necessary risk. I took the letter and the invitation and burned them in my backyard fire pit. I kept the photo album, but did not open it again, simply sealed it in a box and placed it in the closet with the rest of the documents I was collecting. At my next session, my therapist read the letter and appeared angrier than I had ever seen her. She did not raise her voice, did not curse, simply leaned back in her chair and stated, "This goes beyond dysfunction. This is sadism dressed up as tradition." She inquired if I wished to proceed with trauma documentation in case we needed to pursue deeper legal options later. I agreed. She printed out forms to assist with memory logs that same day. On my way out of her office, I saw my wife standing by the far corner of the parking lot. She wasn't concealing herself. She was standing near my car, arms crossed, eyes red. As soon as I unlocked the door, she walked toward me, crying, hands outstretched as if she expected a hug or a breakdown. I informed her she was violating legal boundaries and that I was immediately notifying my attorney. She did not argue, simply stared at me for a few seconds, then got in her car and drove off. My lawyer sent her a final warning through official channels that same night. This time, it included a clear ultimatum. Either she signed the divorce paperwork within 30 days, or I would file and proceed without her consent. She would be notified only through legal routes. Any attempt to meet, call, or write again would be treated as harassment. She did not sign. Instead, she replied with a counter-offer through her lawyer. She would only sign if I agreed to meet her one last time, alone, no lawyers, no recording, just the two of us. Her lawyer claimed she had important emotional context to give before she could reach closure. I refused. I sent my response through my attorney. This was never about emotional closure. It was always about control. There would be no more personal meetings, no more conversations outside legal boundaries. She had made her choices. That weekend, her sister left a voicemail on a friend's phone and asked them to pass it along. It eventually reached me. In it, she called me vindictive, claimed I was ruining their family's name, and said I had made something symbolic and beautiful into something bitter and embarrassing. I sent the voicemail to my lawyer, and he had it transcribed and dated for records. After that, I updated everything, changed all my passwords again, purchased a new security system, installed an outdoor camera facing the front walk, and a smart doorbell with two-way audio and cloud storage. I also contacted my building's management and requested they deny access to anyone claiming to be my spouse or in-law unless previously approved in writing. Then I went to my lawyer's office and signed the final divorce filing. It was submitted the next day. She did not discover it from me. She found out from court delivery, exactly as she wanted, no personal contact, everything legal, everything clean. Still, the silence that followed did not feel like peace. It just felt like the waiting period for what would come next. The email from my lawyer arrived early Monday morning. Her family's legal team had filed a response to the emotional distress claim. Their defense: the entire sequence of events was a structured relationship test, a form of immersive psychological evaluation. They claimed it was never intended to harm, only to deepen emotional insight. One lawyer even referred to it as immersive relational dynamics, a term that caused the judge to raise an eyebrow. By midweek, I began to perceive the effects in real life. Two mutual acquaintances, people I hadn't spoken to in months, started repeating strange phrases. They were just trying to test love. It was unconventional, but not malicious. They hadn't heard this from me. Her family was clearly controlling the narrative, framing it as an experimental romantic trial that I had simply misunderstood. Then the notes began. They appeared in my mailbox, never signed, always folded neatly, written in blue ink. The first one simply said, "You've made your point." Another arrived 2 days later. "Now let's show them you're the better man." The handwriting seemed familiar. I compared it to the letter her sister had hand-delivered weeks earlier. My lawyer did the same. He believed it was a match. We added it to the evidence packet. That same week, my landlord contacted me. Someone had called the property management office asking detailed questions about my lease length, duration of stay, renewal dates, and forwarding addresses. They claimed to be my relative. The manager did not share any information, but he logged the incident. I filed a report. My lawyer added impersonation to the growing list. We began constructing a formal timeline, not just of emotional abuse, but of impersonation, privacy invasion, manipulation, and coordinated deceit. It included screenshots, audio clips, documents, and now surveillance footage. Every moment, every note, every knock on my door, it all went into the file. The audio of her admitting the plan on my doorstep, the letters with strange language about transition phases, the party invitation, they were all submitted to a civil judge along with the restraining order request we filed to restrict contact from her, her father, and her mother. The court accepted. A hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. My lawyer said we would argue psychological trauma, malicious intent, and long-term damage. The judge would decide if a permanent restraining order and damages were appropriate. A few days after the court date was set, her lawyer reached out. She wanted to withdraw all motions and end everything on one condition: I had to agree to a private closure meeting with her, alone, no lawyers, no recording, just her and me. I did not reply. My lawyer did. We declined. That weekend, I started looking for places in a different city. I didn't tell anyone where, just bookmarked listings and contacted agents privately. Once the case was concluded, I didn't plan to remain here. Too many reminders, too many people who believed this was some kind of romance. While packing, I discovered a box I hadn't seen in years, buried under old linens in a storage bin I hadn't opened since before we were married. Inside was a shoebox filled with old notebooks, not journals, but scripts. One contained her handwriting on every page, dialogue, scenarios, outcome trees, flowcharts, titles like "If he threatens to leave" and "Response variants if he files legal complaint." It read more like a playbook than a journal. On one page, she had written, "If he doesn't collapse emotionally, we try the next level." There were multiple outlines of how to approach grief, how to simulate panic, how long to wait between fake calls. It was all meticulously mapped out. Timelines, reactions, probabilities. One note simply said, "Endgame, control or reinvention." I took the box to therapy. My therapist read through the first 2 notebooks and remained silent for several minutes. Then she said she might need to testify. She had already been documenting the trauma progression, but this was something else, proof of intent. The day before the hearing, her father attempted one last maneuver through his legal team. He submitted a request asking that a statement of family unity be read aloud in court. He claimed it was a tradition, a rite of passage, that their family always resolved internal disputes with one final reflection. I gave my lawyer the answer. No. No personal statements, no dramatics, no ceremony. They had their opportunity to speak. Now I would speak through the law. The courthouse was quiet when I arrived. Security check, metal detector, paperwork, routine steps that felt anything but routine. I walked into the assigned courtroom and immediately spotted them. Her parents were already seated. Her father sat upright with his hands folded, expression unreadable. Her mother stared straight ahead. Neither of them looked at me. Their lawyers sat beside them, flipping through a thick folder of documents. The hearing commenced precisely on time. The judge asked both sides if they were ready. Her team responded first and began with what they termed context testimony. They brought in a licensed psychologist who introduced herself, then proceeded to describe the fake death and vanishing act as a structured trust experiment. She claimed the intention was never harm, but growth. She used phrases like controlled exposure to emotional instability and behavioral evaluation under artificial duress. Then came the cross-examination. My lawyer asked one question: who had paid her for her time and report? She stated she was contracted through a private consulting firm. When asked which one, she provided the name of a company owned by my wife's father. The room shifted. The judge raised his head. Her lawyer requested a recess. It was denied. My lawyer then played the audio recording, the one from the security camera at my door. The moment my wife confirmed in her own voice that the entire death had been planned, no emotion, no hesitation, just a flat-toned admission. The judge asked to hear it again, then once more after that. We submitted the notebooks. I carried the shoebox to the clerk's desk myself. Inside were the pages she had written, outlines of scenarios, rehearsed dialogues, diagrams, even timed breakdowns of possible reactions. One document was titled, "If he doesn't break." Another, Phase 2 escalation options. The judge said nothing, simply flipped through a few pages, then passed the box to a clerk for scanning. Her testimony followed. She approached in a fitted suit, hair pulled back, and began with a calm, clear statement. She claimed the entire test was designed from a place of love, that her family had always been protective, that she wanted to be absolutely certain I was the right person to build a legacy with. She described it as calculated but necessary. Midway through her second paragraph, the judge interrupted. He asked her plainly, "Do you understand the emotional damage you caused by pretending to be dead?" She blinked, paused, then began speaking again. The judge raised his hand and instructed her to cease speaking. Her father stood next. He defended their choices, stating their family culture had always included character tests, that no one in their family had ever married without being vetted through adversity. He framed it as a tradition, a rite of passage. The judge leaned forward and called it what it was, a pattern of coercion disguised as legacy building. He stated the court was not in the business of protecting family myths that functioned as emotional manipulation. He granted the restraining order. 6 months, no contact from her father, or her mother. Any messages would have to go through legal counsel only. Then came the divorce ruling. The judge finalized it immediately. The marriage was dissolved on grounds of emotional entrapment and deception. A clause was added to the judgment. No future contact from her for reconciliation purposes. If she attempted to reach out, it would count as a violation of the order. As the paperwork was being signed, I saw her face change. She looked toward me for the first time since entering the room. Her jaw tensed. She opened her mouth to speak. Her lawyer placed a hand on her arm. She stopped. I left without looking back. It was raining when I stepped outside, not heavily, just enough to dampen your hair and run down the back of your neck. I didn't move at first, just stood in it. It felt real, grounded, quiet. My lawyer met me downstairs, congratulated me in a low voice. He said this was one of the most disturbing cases of psychological manipulation he had ever handled. He said, "Most people break. Most people cave under the pressure before it ever reaches a courtroom." He told me I had done everything correctly. That night, I completed one last form. The transfer of ownership for our former joint property. I mailed it with delivery confirmation. No ceremony, no delay. It was over. Legally, emotionally, psychologically, there was nothing left to answer, nothing left to prove. It has been a year. I reside in a different state now. New apartment, new job, no ties to anyone connected to her or her family. I never provided a forwarding address. I didn't inform mutual friends where I was going. I packed my car, drove 12 hours, and started anew in a city where no one knows my last name. That last part is also changing. The paperwork is filed. I am legally dropping the name I shared with her, something I retained longer than I should have, not because I desired the connection, but because I wished to avoid the administrative tasks. Now, I desire the clean break, the complete reset. The court case concluded months ago. The restraining order held. The divorce terms remained. Her family attempted one last appeal regarding the restraining order's permanence, but the judge denied it without a hearing. The documents were mailed to my lawyer with a single line. No additional commentary permitted from the involved parties. Therapy has continued, but the tone of the sessions has shifted. A few weeks ago, I confessed something to my therapist I hadn't vocalized before, that for months, even after the court hearing, I still found myself expecting her to reappear, as if it had all been a prolonged setup, as if the plot twist hadn't yet been revealed. That feeling is now gone. It ceased sometime around the move. I still experience flashbacks, nothing dramatic, just sharp moments, a siren, a hospital billboard, or a missed call from an unknown number. The brain fills in old gaps, but the images no longer hold power. They come and go like echoes in an empty room. Last month, I took a weekend trip alone to a national park 3 hours away. I hiked, camped, and stayed off my phone. One night, a hiker from another trail site asked to share firewood. We sat mostly in silence, discussing gear, local trails, weather patterns, nothing deep, nothing forced. It reminded me that human connection doesn't always come with conditions, or tests, or secret games. I wrote a letter the day I returned, to her, not to mail, just to write. It said, "You broke something in me, but you also freed me from ever needing your approval again." I folded it in half and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. That's where it will remain. My lawyer contacted me again recently. The court finalized a decision on financial restitution. Since a portion of our marital assets had been held under her family's control during the test, the judge ordered partial repayment of legal and therapy costs. A forced liquidation of one of their secondary accounts covered the total. The check cleared 2 weeks ago. The house we shared, what was once our marital home, is now gone, sold to a young couple expecting their first child. They sent a thank you note for leaving behind a few appliances. I did not reply. Watching them take the keys triggered nothing in me. I felt no sadness, no anger, no relief, just done. I returned to the city once for final paperwork. While walking near the county building, I saw her across the street. She was entering a cafe with someone else. I turned and walked the other direction. No pause, no tension, just movement. I didn't need to know who she was with or why she was there. That part of my life no longer belongs to me. A few days later, her lawyer sent one last letter, a simple message. She hopes you are healing. My lawyer asked if I wanted to respond. I said no. On the 1-year mark, the same day I received the phone call claiming she was dead, I went hiking. I reached the peak just before sunset. No one else was around. At the summit, I pulled a folded slip of paper from my coat pocket. I wrote one sentence on it. I lived through it. I tucked it into a crack in the bark of an old pine tree. Then I lit a candle I had brought in my pack, not for her, but for the version of me that had survived long enough to reach this point. I watched the flame for a few minutes, then extinguished it and stood up. At the top of that ridge, with the wind on my face and no one around, there was nothing left to decipher. No anger, no fear, no questions awaiting answers, no test to pass, just stillness. And for the first time in a long time, stillness was enough.